Walt Whitman was born on May 31st, 1819 in Huntington, Long Island. Both of his parents were Quakers. He grew up in a working-class family and didn't attend college. He began his life as a laborer in his teenage years. By his mid-30s he had begun producing works of writing that eventually led many to view him as America's greatest poet, and that showed his Transcendentalist ideas. One of these famous works is shown here, in O Captain, My Captain. His ideals revolved around democracy, individualism, reform, and dignity of manual labor, and he took many radical positions on labor issues, women's property rights, and immigration. Walt Whitman was a strong advocate against slavery and was a delegate to the 1848 founding convention of the Free Soil Party, which was concerned about the threat slavery would pose if it moved into the Western territories. His anti-slavery views came from his witnessing the brutality of slavery and the slave trade firsthand while growing up in New Orleans, and he protested with poetic observances on how to unify the country, as seen in The Sleepers. However, like many Americans of his time, Walt actually had a very low opinion of African Americans, and many historians believe that he only supported the abolition of slavery in an attempt to preserve the nation's peace, though many romanticize him as an abolitionist hero. One of his most famous pieces is Leaves of Grass, which Walt spent his entire life writing. It was first published in 1855, and Walt revised it in several editions until his death. Leaves of Grass was a result of Walt's poetic observations. It was heavily influenced by Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalist movement. It praises nature and the individual's role in it, and also focuses on the idea that a man's relationship to God is personal and established by the individual. Leaves of Grass received mixed reviews from its audience due to many of its radical ideas and explicit sexual imagery being considered immoral at the time. The title caught the eye of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who declared Whitman's poems to be the most extraordinary piece of wit and wisdom to come from an American pen. Whitman had many radical ideas that he expressed through his works, including advocacy for prohibition, a deep influence of deism, meaning that he embraced all religions as equal but believed in none, evidence shown in his pieces that he was homosexual or bisexual, advocacy of nudity, the denial of William Shakespeare's authorship, opposition of slavery, and his strange nationalistic views, constructing a hierarchy with himself at the head and America below, followed by the rest of the world. Despite the vast nature of Whitman's beliefs, he never specified a solution to many of the problems he discussed, other than his advocacy of individualism and the abolition of slavery. This is likely due to the fact that the majority of his poems were of an observational nature. Walt Whitman died at the age of 72 as a result of bronchial pneumonia, and is still renowned as one of America's most important poets, and is still quoted to this day. One of his most famous quotes, and a sort of summary of his beliefs, is, "After you have exhausted what there is in business, politics, conviviality, and so on, have found that none of these finally satisfy or permanently wear, what remains? Nature remains."